You're listening to ChooseFI Radio. The blueprint for financial independence lives here. If you're looking to unlock the secrets to financial independence and early retirement, you're in the right place. Stay tuned and join a community of like-minded people who are getting off the hamster wheel and taking control of their lives in the pursuit of financial independence. ChooseFI, your home for financial independence online.
Hi guys, welcome to the ChooseFI Radio Podcast. Today we have an episode that is long overdue. We are going to be speaking with Andy Hill from MarriageKidsAndMoney.com. This episode is one that I think is long overdue because we haven't really had someone come in and speak specifically to the process of engaging your spouse about money. And I think Andy is someone that has positioned himself to really create a strategy around this. And I think this conversation is going to provide value for a large percentage of the audience. The other reason I'm very excited about this particular episode is we've convinced Andy to go ahead and introduce us to baby steps 8, 9, and 10. Now, I know some of you Dave Ramsey listeners out there, your ears perked up because like me, you got to baby step 7 and you said, still feel like there's more to do. What comes next? Well, Andy is going to be walking out baby steps 8, 9, and 10, the patented 8, 9, 10 combo. We're going to be unpacking it today and very excited about this. And to help me with this, I have my co-host Brad here with me today. How you doing, buddy?
I am doing great, Jonathan. This should be a really good one. I'm looking forward to it. Andy is a great guy. We've both actually been on his podcast. So it's nice to have him here at ChooseFI. And yeah, these are two really interesting topics that, frankly, we get questions about all the time. People are coming to us constantly saying, how do I get my spouse or significant other on board? And besides some of the normal little platitudes that we may have about trying to meet them where they are and all this other stuff, it's hard to come up with a real concrete answer. And I'm very much looking forward to exploring it with Andy. And certainly we have a lot of Dave Ramsey fans. So moving beyond step 7 is really going to be valuable for a lot of people. So with that, Andy, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, guys. I really appreciate the introduction and looking forward to chat today.
So Andy, I set this interview up by saying we really wanted to explore this idea of getting your spouse on board with FI. And I thought it was so interesting. I view you, like if I'm someone that kind of was introduced to personal finance through Dave Ramsey and have kind of moved on, you really straddle this line between the two. I know that you teach a Financial Peace University class. You've centered all of your content around this model of what does it mean to be pursuing financial independence and bringing your spouse on board with these concepts. And I guess to set this up, was it difficult for you to bring your wife on board with this whole approach to personal finance, or was this something that was easy and you're just talking about it almost looking back?
No, it's difficult every day. Absolutely. No, I mean, from the beginning, I've had a goal or a thought that once I sort of found this whole Dave Ramsey methodology that I really got excited about it. And I figured, man, let's become debt-free and figure it out. And that's the approach that I took with her immediately, as opposed to going to her and talking to her about the benefits of becoming debt-free or becoming financially independent. I approached her with the methodology. So, hey, sweetheart, let's get on a budget and we're going to sell your luxury car. What do you think about that? That didn't go so well. So I think at the beginning, I've learned a lot about how to approach my wife and get her excited about things and speak in terms that make her excited. And it's been a learning process for me too. We're 7 years into our marriage and man, I'm learning something new every day about how to have conversations with my wife. But the conversations that she did get excited about were more around along the lines of, hey, sweetheart, the job that you have today that you really don't dig, that you don't, see yourself being at in 5 years. What if we made these changes in our lives and you could be a stay-at-home mom when our kids come? Those were some of the things that really helped us to get it going. But to answer your question, it has not been smooth sailing since day one, for sure.
Yeah, I think a lot of us can relate to that, certainly. And Andy, I'm curious, what did your life look like before these conversations? Like, what did your financial life look like, just to paint the picture?
Yeah, I like to start around the time that we did get married. We knew the general aspects of saving a little bit of your money, not going into credit card debt, the typical things that you'd know, just having some knowledge about money. But as we started our marriage and we both had decent jobs, we were both making six figures, and combined we were making six figures, doing pretty well. And we thought, hey man, we're doing really well. We're rich. We don't really have anything to worry about. And as soon as we started to think about having kids and bringing new life into this world, we wanted to make sure that we were doing well. We started reading up a little bit on some books. I mentioned Dave Ramsey earlier. We started watching a show called, it was a Susie Orman show, and she had a segment called How Am I Doing? And essentially somebody lays out their life for her, and then she gives them a score of A to E. We watched that show one night, and they were talking about something about net worth. And I had no idea what net worth was. Even though we were making, combined six figures income, we were happy and doing well, but I really had no idea what that term meant. We watched the show and we thought, hey, well, you know what? We're doing so well. Why don't we find out what our net worth is? So we dove in and we found out, lo and behold, our net worth was negative $50,000. And we had no net worth. We were actually broke.
Hence why you weren't aware of it. It did not exist for you.
Exactly. And at that point, we said, okay, if we're going to bring some humans into this world and not just care about ourselves as dinks, double income, no kids, what can we do to start thinking about our future, helping our kids have a better life? And at that point, we really wanted to make a difference. And that's pretty much where we started our journey to debt freedom and now our future journey of financial independence.
Well, you said we started our journey, but my understanding is you really went down the rabbit hole first, hence why we're having this conversation about getting your spouse on board, right?
You are exactly right, Jonathan. Yes, I do say we quite a bit.
That's great now. I suspect on day one, it didn't start with we.
No, it did not start with we. Yeah, I mean, in the beginning, these were conversations, again, that I had with my wife, because let's just say she's down with, being debt free and the financial independence thing, but she's not as excited about it as I am. Let's just say she doesn't have a blog and a podcast about personal finance. But that being said, yeah, in the beginning, it did take a little bit of conversations, convincing, speaking to her in terms of things that got her excited, that brought her on board. So yeah, it wasn't we in the beginning, I'll say.
I think when you're like a super excitable person like I am, and you stumble into this idea and suddenly you're switching the channel at HGTV when she's trying to watch it, and now you're watching Susie Orman so you can get your grade on your next experience. And when you're going out and you're looking at her car and saying, oh, that's got to go because that's not in the Dave Ramsey baby steps. We need to sell everything. Your first instinct is just to tell your wife all the changes that you need to make in order to get to debt free. I'm just curious, is that the approach that you initially took? And then after you realized, probably like I did, that is not going to work, did you pivot at all?
Absolutely, man. Because having debt freedom and becoming financially independent is great. But you know what else is also great? A happy marriage. So if I continue to bring up things where we could save a little bit of money here or, not spend here, I think in the long term, yeah, I see how you could become debt-free and financially independent, but at what cost? You got to make sure that you have a happy marriage, and some of that is with balance, and that's okay. She helps me to be more fun. I'll just say that. If it were just me, these messages that we have, heard through all the gurus that we've been reading, they are super appealing to us, right? But there's two people in this marriage, and they both have to be happy. So she helped me throughout this whole process over the past 7 years to have a good balance of, yes, being frugal and spending on things that bring us joy and not being wasteful, but also realizing that life is for living and there's lots of important and fun things that you can do together as a couple. And then as soon as you have kids, great things you can do together when you have kids too. So I think it's all about balance.
Andy, you mentioned trying to find the messages that would resonate with your wife. And I'm curious, what were those? What were the specific items? And how did you work through them? What did that process look like? Because I imagine this wasn't one conversation, 2, 5. This is probably many, many conversations over potentially years. How did that process work? And what were the messages that ultimately resonated with her?
Yeah, I would say, Brad, I started off with talking about the benefits of debt freedom and financial independence instead of the process. So sometimes we get buried in all of the details that it takes to get to debt freedom or financial independence, and we don't talk about why it's so great to have it. For example, we're a couple that likes to travel. Before, we would not have all of the money we would need to travel when we initially got married, and I would throw it on my home equity line of credit, right? So we initially hit the gratification button by paying for it with credit. And yes, we were able to travel, but down the road, we'd be paying on that trip for months and months and months, right? So I talked to her about the ability for us to completely be debt-free and have that ability to travel on our terms and pay for it with cash. That kind of got her excited. And we talked about her employment at the time and then our interest in having kids. We talked about, hey, what could we do in order to eliminate our $50,000 in debt that we have between my student loans and your car payments? And once that's eliminated, we're going to be able to live on a different, live on 50% of our income and have you be able to stay at home with the kids. Wouldn't that make you excited? Wouldn't that make you super thrilled to go into this path with me? And those sort of things got her excited to jump on board with me and start down the steps of becoming debt-free.
I love that you're highlighting the benefits of being debt-free and the benefits of pursuing financial independence. I think that's something that we tend to miss when we get very fixated on all the changes that we need to make in the here and now. Once you have this reorientation, you don't realize how much it's actually costing you to have that gratification right away. You don't realize how much you're actually having to put in and how those choices that you're making are actually tying you to maybe a job that you're less than satisfied with or a lifestyle that really has become a hamster wheel. And I'm very interested to see how your wife followed you down this decision tree. Was it just resisting the whole way, or were there specific things that you did that increasingly brought you together as a couple on this journey?
Well, a big part of a win that we had together was getting together for our monthly budget session, which I had dubbed the budget party. The goal of making the name budget party was to sort of lure her in to make it sound like it was a lot more fun than it actually was. I mean, it's a lot of fun for me because that's the kind of stuff that I like. But, luring her in and having some conversations about, hey, what can we do to get together each month? And yes, we'll be going over our budget and talking about our finances. But what else could we be doing that's fun? Talking about our dreams for the future, maybe having a little pizza, beer, wine, something like that, having an opportunity for us to get together and talk about what we want to be as a family. What do we want to be as a couple in 5-10 years down the road? And then working on those goals together. That monthly get together, that budget party, we still do it. We started it in 2011. It's 2018 now. So we've been doing it for 7 years and we still do it every month. We get together and talk about what we spent the previous month, what we're planning on spending in the month coming up, what events do we have, what things do we want to do, and we allocate our finances accordingly. And then again, that last thing is that we talk about our dreams, talk about our financial goals, and talk about what we want to do with our family. That got her excited enough so to keep on doing it with me for 7 years. So,
Andy, I love that budget party. I've never heard of that before. That's, we're always talking about actionable tips here at ChooseFI. That's a really cool one. Make it something fun. I was going to ask you, do you have cocktails and food? But yeah, it sounds like it. Beer and wine and stuff. Yeah. Do you ever do a theme budget party?
Yeah, some other fun things we do since we now have kids. Originally, when it was just her and I, it's something we could just do at the house together. We've actually gone to restaurants in the past, which is totally funny because we'll go to a restaurant and we'll break open the laptop and the receipts, and we're having a nice dinner while we're doing our budget in the middle of the restaurant. We get some funny looks, but we don't care. We're getting it done and we're having fun together as a family. But yeah, now that we have kids, some fun ways to still get this budget party done while taking care of kids. We've gone to a play place where they've got Wi-Fi. The kids run around like crazy while we're doing the budget, which is a lot of fun. If it's a nice day outside, we'll sit outside while the kids are riding their bikes around the driveway, and we'll get it done. So there's just fun ways to still incorporate it in your life while planning for your future. So some of those things can be a lot of fun.
I have several questions about this. I love this. My wife is constantly telling me that one of the things that we need to be incorporating, especially now that we have a young child, is a date night, right? A regular time that we can set apart for ourselves. Maybe there's some room for a compromise here that gives us both what we want. Me, a chance to interact with her on finances, and her a chance to just get some quality time that doesn't involve the TV or me talking about ChooseFI. So, right.
I can understand that, buddy.
With that in mind, I'm very curious. You mentioned where you go, but I would love to hear more about some of the questions that you guys both bring up, and not just the ones that you ask, which is how much do we end up spending? What do you think we should do next? But where does your wife engage with you? What questions does she have for you in these kind of monthly dates?
Obviously, she wants me to be happy. When you get a happy husband, you're happy, and happy wife, happy life, right? Both ways. So we're constantly talking to each other about what the end goals are that lead us towards something that makes us happy. So for the past 4 or 5 years, I've been bringing up our interest in paying off our mortgage completely. She's worked closely with me to figure out the individual things that we can do to increase our income and decrease our expenses so that mortgage could be completely paid off in our mid-30s. And she's worked closely with me to understand what those things are. So when we look at our grocery spending, for example, and we find that we're spending $900 a month on groceries for the two of us and then 2 small kids, that seems to be something that we could make a change on. She was happy enough to have some conversations about what those changes could be. And we worked together to make some changes to almost save $3,000 or $4,000 a year just in that category alone. So she's found it to be almost like a game with me where we can find these individual categories now and have some fun in making changes, as long as it doesn't completely ruin the joy or the fun in your life. I mean, and she's been my fun barometer, right? You know, I could live in a cardboard box and not have my house decorated and things like that, and I'd be happy. But Nicole helps keep me balanced and understanding, hey, when we're looking at a line item of things that we maybe want to change, let's make sure that it's not completely taking away our joy as well.
Andy, do you have examples of things that you would have cut out that Nicole put back in?
Oh, it's called Target. I don't know if you've heard of that place, Brad. No, and no joke. I mean, I don't find as much joy in buying new clothes and home decorating, things like that. Those are things my wife finds very important to her. And you know what? If it's important to her, it's important to me. And honestly, she sacrificed for quite a while we were paying off our mortgage to cut down in a lot of those areas. And now that we are mortgage free, that's been her reward at the end, of doing that. So she's able to have like a decent sized clothing budget and a decent sized home decorating budget. Essentially, we got our home 4 years ago and we did minimal nesting or decorating, and now she's able to do a little bit more of that, and that makes her very happy.
I love how polarizing this sentence is for reasons that may not be initially apparent. You have 2 sets of people listening to this, people potentially that are hardcore FI that are like, no, you can't pay off your mortgage early, don't do that. And then people maybe in the Dave Ramsey camp that are like, yes, this is what success looks like. And I think that this is a perfect opportunity for us to have someone on the show that can talk just for a few minutes, especially since you kind of straddle both of these communities, someone that can speak to the immediate benefits, maybe the unintended benefits of paying off your mortgage in less than 4 years.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, we worked on it starting in 2013. My wife and I were interested in upgrading our home from my small little bungalow that we had, my bachelor pad, and we found a great home together. I was all for it. It was definitely a lot more than I wanted. I was all for it, but the mortgage was going to be pretty large, and I really didn't want to, increase our lifestyle, kind of avoid the lifestyle creep. So I begrudgingly agreed to go for the new home, even though we both enjoyed it, as long as we went with a 15-year mortgage and then made an aggressive plan to pay it off in 5 years. And, with that, my wife and I worked together again, using our budget party to analyze how we could actually get that done. And yeah, lucky enough, through some increase in income and some ability for us to find other ways to save, we were able to pay it off in 4 years. So yeah, we're really excited about where we are right now. But to your point on the mortgage payoff versus the investing, I know I've heard both sides. And yes, I have been a Dave Ramsey guy for quite a while, but as I've heard other messages and learned other things, I was sort of at that intersection. And I know, Jonathan, you and I have talked about that in the past, where you got gung-ho with Dave Ramsey as well, and then you learned some other things and some changes of things that you do appreciate about him, and then some things that you would have done differently. So I got to this point where we were nearly almost mortgage-free. I did learn about some other things about investing, and maybe that's a better use of my money. But honestly, at this point, I was so interested in having no debt in my life and not owing a dime to anybody, and then being able to say, I own this house. No one can ever take it away from me. It's a liberating feeling to have. And yes, I do understand financial independence is important to a lot of people, and having the ability to use that money and make a lot more in the market than I would, even with my 3% interest payment that I was making on my mortgage. I understand that. But for me and my family and the excitement that we had around being mortgage free and completely debt free, it's allowed us to reduce the stress in my life of never having a mortgage, and my wife as well. It's increased our net worth, and our ability to get to FI is a little easier because we don't have that mortgage. Our annual expenses are a lot lower. So there was lots of reasons that it just made sense to continue down the path, and we were able to pay it off in November of 2017.
Andy, that's absolutely incredible to pay off. I think you said a $400,000 home is the article that I'm reading on your website, and in less than 4 years. How does that happen? I mean, that's obviously a lot of money in a 4-year time span. How do you pay off a $400,000 house in 4 years?
I guess I'll walk you through a little bit of the details, because that's a question that I get from a lot of people. So when we bought it in 2014, or when we closed on it in 2014, it was a $350,000 house, right? So it's appreciated up to $400,000. So thank you very much for the real estate values as of late around Metro Detroit, which is great. Originally, we put a very large down payment on it, about $155,000. So how the heck did we get $155,000? We were living on half of our income for multiple years leading up to this. And I'll thank Dave Ramsey for that, for getting us in a good spot and teaching us some great principles. And I kind of went gung-ho with it. So did my wife. So we were able to save $155,000, about a 45% down payment. We had a 15-year mortgage, which put a lot more principal on the payments each month. Even though we went down to a single income at one point, where Nicole decided that we worked together to decide that having her stay at home with our second child made the most sense for our lives in 2014. We were able to continue down that path. The payments definitely decreased in that time frame, but we had made such a big headway when we were both utilizing both of our incomes to pay it down that we got to that point in 2017 to completely pay it off. So just some hard work through a big down payment, utilizing at least 50% of our income to combat it, as well as other savings methods, and then just keeping at it with our budget parties each month. We got there.
Andy, I love what you've done. I think it's such an extreme example, and this is going to be a very polarizing topic because this is going to be aired specifically for the financial independence community. And as I mentioned earlier, you're going to have a lot of Dave Ramsey fans cheering you, but you're going to have a lot of people on the other side saying, I don't know if that was optimal. That may have been suboptimal. The reasons that the FI community feels this way is, one, you have the sequence of return risk, which we've explained in episode 35 with Big Earn, episode 35. Also, you're missing the chance potentially to max out those pre-tax accounts. And there's a few other reasons as well. But, in the Dave Ramsey camp, it's a very clear choice that this is what you should be pursuing, although Andy's crushing it even by those standards. In the FI community, it's maybe a little bit more gray, and so it can go either way. But I'm not really interested in having you litigate this choice. This is the choice that you made. And I think that anybody, how old are you, Andy?
I'm 36.
Okay. So I think that anybody objectively, once they get past the choice and they look at someone that is easily surpassing a 50% savings rate at this point with no mortgage, because crushing their savings rate, you're going to do fine. And I suspect there will never be a point in time at which you'll look back and regret this decision. I think it's important to highlight that. But it is very interesting how we kind of, depending on what your gateway was to this concept of personal finance and financial independence, you may have a different take on what choice you actually made. I'd love for you to hear you explore a little bit more about maybe some of the unintended benefits of having no mortgage now that you're maybe a year or two out from this.
Absolutely. And before I do that, I do want to clarify that during this time frame, we have been maxing out our pre-tax options. And that's something that we didn't really follow with regard to the Dave Ramsey plan. We've been maxing out the 401k, maxing out the Roth IRAs. I just got into the HSA this year after, diving into other options. But that is something we did take advantage of, didn't follow that Mr. Ramsey to a T there. But some of the unintended benefits was your question. Yes, absolutely. And again, math if I went back and knew what the market was going to do from 2011 to 2018, would I have taken a different path? Sure. But who has that crystal ball, right? Exactly. I knew that whatever I would do, I am guaranteed to not have to make this payment ever again. And the ability to have that in my life, complete debt freedom, to know that I don't owe anybody a dime ever again, is completely liberating. And it makes me feel great. And as I was going through that process, that was what I was thinking about. That was the motivation that brought us both joy as we were talking about what our balance is today, what our balance is going to be in a year, and eventually completely paying it off. So now that we are mortgage free, a great thing that we have is just a lot more cash to play around with. And when I say play around with, it's a little bit of fun and then a lot of planning for the future. So right now we're saving about $3,000 a month to go into a real estate savings account. So we're planning to buy our first property by the end of the year. And with that, we'll start to develop some great passive income in real estate that will eventually get us to a point of financial independence that we're excited about. So that and working together on developing side businesses and bringing in some of that income, I feel like we can still reach that financial independence point with having our mortgage paid off as well. So it's I'm trying to do both, and I think we've got a plan to do it by 40 years old.
I think the audience sighed a collective sigh of relief when they heard that you had maxed out your pre-tax buckets first.
Exactly. And I get that, especially with my employer, I get a great match. So I wanted to take advantage of that to the full extent. If I put in the 18K, or it's 18.5 now, but if I put in that 18K, they were matching it, I think 15% each year to the total amount. So if I didn't take advantage of that, that's free money. And definitely with the Roth IRA and the great benefits there, knowing that I can take my contributions out whenever I need to as well, that just seems like a no-brainer. So been taking advantage of those, and so we're doing both. I mean, I can see the negatives of not investing, especially over the past 7 years. It's not as if I've been holding off. I just haven't been doing, the taxable brokerage account like most people. Most people listening to the show, I guess I'll say, I wanted to take advantage of all the pre-tax options that are out there.
I'm totally empathizing with you. And though I think it may be even worse on your end, just because of the timeline that you ended up putting all this money towards it. So essentially, when I paid down my student loans, I was paying down a 6% interest rate, but the market was gaining 12 to 15. For this 4-year window that you were paying down your mortgage, you basically traded a 15 to 20% rate of return to pay down 3% debt. So it's kind of one of those,
Yep.
But,
yeah, and I hear you. And that's what made me feel okay about that. It was that I was still investing. I might have not been investing in post-tax or in a brokerage account, but I was still investing. And my 401k at my new job, I've only been there for 4 years, and it is $110,000 right now. So I've been maxing that out, and it happened all in 4 years. And outside of that, I've had my Roth IRA growing before that. But I mean, yeah, I've been taking advantage of the market and paying off debt. So I've been trying to do both.
Andy, that's incredible. I mean, many people, even in the FI community, would be very pleased to max out their 401k, max out their Roth IRA, and get a 15% match. And then you're saying on top of this, essentially you paid off what I'm just doing back of the envelope math here, and paid off a $200,000 mortgage in 4 years. So, I mean, that is an extraordinary amount of savings. So, I mean, a hearty congratulations to you. And, from the one person on this podcast who's not a Dave Ramsey guy, I can also say there is a huge allure of paying off that mortgage, even though Jonathan mentioned it may be suboptimal, and there might be like hardcore FI people out there screaming at their headphones or phone right now saying, of course it's suboptimal, but that's fine. The psychological benefits of paying off that mortgage are enormous. And frankly, I struggle with this. My wife, Laura, and I, we have this conversation almost every month of should we pay off the mortgage aggressively or not? And we're currently in a period where we're not, but just hearing you guys paying this thing off so quickly and then just not having that debt forever. I mean, there's such a lure there. So I really appreciate the perspective just to hear it from you and Nicole and how it's benefited your life. And I'm curious, was there ever a point in time where you almost went the other way, where let's say 4 or 5 years ago, were you ever in the balance of, hey, let's either aggressively pay this off or let's save every dollar and invest it? Or was it such a slam dunk answer for you?
No, it's been a million times over that I've thought about, am I doing the right thing? Most recently, probably in the last 2 or 3 years, where I've discovered other methodologies outside of Dave Ramsey. You go into this sort of hole of Dave Ramseyism and you're like, this is the only way. And then, 3 or 4 years later, I started to read other books and other blogs and other opinions. Those started to poke at me a little bit. Am I doing the right thing? Is this the best thing for me and my family? And still at that point, my wife and I had a lot of conversations about what we're doing. And at this point, she's gung-ho. She wants to get rid of this thing so much. Her and I have a lot of conversations about what's right, what's best for our family. And we decided, hey, let's do both where we're still investing for our retirement and pay off the mortgage. It's the best of both worlds. And yes, over the past 3 or 4 years, could we have made a lot more in the market? For sure. But I was guaranteed I was at least going to have no mortgage and no more payments at this point. And now where we're sitting right now, we're able to save quite a bit of money and invest for our future. And we're really excited about it. And to your point, Brad, about you and your wife and the situation you're in, you guys have to do what's right for you. This is all personal. There is no right answer when it comes to financial independence and personal finance. It is personal. You have to do what's right for you and your wife and your spouse, and make sure that it fits best for your plan. There's no right answer. I think hopefully that will help people to realize there are no right exact rules that need to be followed here.
But Brad and Laura are doing one thing obviously wrong, and that is that they're not having these conversations in the context of a budget party, because that would clearly resolve all of this.
I think that might be on now. We'll see.
All right, Laura, you got it. Andy, I just had this thought. I was basically counting off the steps on my fingers, and I realized that you have now achieved baby step 7 and beyond now. Like, you're in uncharted territory. And I'm curious, what do 8, 9, and 10 look like for you?
For somebody who's been through Dave Ramsey and they're really excited about it and going through all the steps, and steps are fun. You check them off the box and you say, did that. And I'm kind of a goal-oriented person, I could say. Once I hit something, I'm excited for the next thing. So I went through all these steps, or we went through all these steps together and hit baby step 7. And yes, we're very excited about being here completely mortgage-free. But then obviously the answer after that, or the question after that, is what's next? And that's, at least for me, and I know a lot of people out there feel the same way. And obviously, some of these steps don't need to be followed exactly to the T, but I had written out an article that helped me at least plan it out in my brain about where you could go from here if you want to keep being a saver and keep planning for the future and keep moving towards a point in your life of complete freedom and happiness. And for me, I thought baby step 8, after you're completely mortgage-free and debt-free, would be making sure you're maxing out all your tax-favored retirement accounts. Nicole and I were doing that, at least for the 401k option and the Roth IRAs. But this year, we are making sure that we're maxing out the HSA opportunity as well. That is the triple tax benefit. I love that one. And I'm really excited about maxing that bad boy out. And then baby step 9, which we added in here, was to develop a source of passive income. And obviously, this can happen at any point throughout your whole baby step FI journey, and it should happen, a lot earlier if you can. So passive income can be a lot of things. Rental real estate is something we're really excited about in our family that we're planning to take advantage of. Getting in post-tax accounts, like a brokerage account, like I know a lot of people do within your network here with ChooseFI. Building a small business that could help you to bring in additional income. I know a lot of bloggers listen to this show, and the ability for you to create money through affiliate income or advertising or sponsorships is a great way to make money while you sleep. It's so exciting, and it's something I'm pursuing as well. And then the last one, baby step 10, which you guys know all about, is bringing in enough passive income to cover your expenses, or as you guys call it, financial independence. So when you get to that point, maybe that's baby step 10. I don't know if Mr. Ramsey's going to write a new book or adopt any of these things that we're talking about right now, but at least I had some fun playing around with that in my brain.
These baby steps have not been authorized or endorsed by Dave Ramsey or the Lampo team. Please use at your own risk. Please don't sue us.
Exactly.
I love it, though. No, that's perfect. And I think that is where it lines up. I remember getting to the end of the Total Money Makeover, getting to the end of Financial Peace University and going, okay, I'm debt-free. My life's moderately better, but I don't feel significantly changed. And I'm looking for more. And I'm kind of like you. I want that next piece and that next piece. And I think what you've laid out is a very similar groundwork to what we're working on as well. What does it look like to design your future? And that's really the message that I see you talking about. And I love that you tie it back to this idea of marriage and family. I mean, that is a massive piece of this puzzle, because if you have the money, but you don't have the relationships, what's the point?
Exactly. And I think I've heard that from some folks too, is that sometimes we get so excited about things, whether it's, I don't know, a new hobby or health or financial independence, and we get in our own minds about what's right. And we spend so much time on social media or in these groups understanding one way of thinking. And then we forget that we're married to somebody else that probably has a different viewpoint. Yes, you can talk to them about things that you're excited about, but you need to realize that this isn't just you. You're a partnership, and it needs to work for both people. So that's something I work on daily, as well as try to practice in my own life. So
Andy, that's perfect, because you actually kind of alluded earlier to something where you said, I guess there's still maybe some resistance that Nicole has, or I guess just conversations that you guys have going forward about your budgeting, about your financial life. Is there that resistance from her? And what do those conversations look like now?
It's actually the opposite, Brad. Lately, she's been the one that's been holding me accountable for our budget parties and making sure we're getting together. In the beginning, yes, it was military, Andy gung-ho. But now she's as excited about where we're going as I was in the beginning. And it's so nice to hear, because she sees the benefits of what we can do together and where we're going to be when we're 40 years old, and this family business we're going to start to create. And it's just completely flipped, and it makes me very happy. But it's great, because her excitement level is now getting me excited. And when I've missed it a day or two when we were supposed to get together on the first of the month, she's the one reminding me, saying, hey, we need to do this. We need to make our plans. And it's awesome.
Now, I'm going to complicate your life a little bit by throwing you under the bus and saying that I know that you have started to use travel rewards. If you're in Andy's Financial Peace University class, please close your ears. But I'd love to hear specifically with these conversations that you two are actually having in the context of a paid off mortgage, where this plan that you set out at day one has been achieved, and now you're dreaming big together. What questions specifically is she asking you, and where does she see this going? Like when you're having these budget parties, what topics is she bringing up now?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the travel rewards. This is something that we started, I think, last summer after having a conversation with Brad, to be honest with you. Brad enlightened me to the abilities of what you can do responsibly with credit cards and get some major rewards to it. I know that's not a secret to everybody here in ChooseFI land, but for somebody who went through Dave Ramsey and did not have a credit card for 5 years in a row, because that was, I guess, the rules in the book. I never really had a credit card problem before that, but after reading the book and going through it, you feel like you have a credit card problem, even though you don't. So that's one thing that I actually don't agree with him on. And it took some personal experience to understand that. And my wife was kind enough to go along the process with me and just using our debit card for 5 years. But over the past 2 years now, we've gone back to credit cards and realized, wow, actually, we're still able to live on the budget, and we don't spend more than we used to. And we've been missing out on all these incredible rewards that we could have been getting. So she's totally excited about my change of mind and my change of heart. And that was a big mistake on my part. But hey, you don't know until you learn, right? And so now we're taking advantage of things with travel rewards. And we actually have a plan, which is something we talk about during our budget parties, to go to an all-inclusive resort in Cancun in May, all completely on travel rewards points. It's going to be so fun. And I cannot believe that I didn't know about it beforehand, because it's just like this hidden thing that, yes, requires responsibility, but man, it just seems like, and it requires a lot of diligence too, and a lot of hard work. And we found that, but man, it is quite a benefit. And she's super excited about that. And she's actually sort of the travel rewards CFO, we'll say. She's got the sheet that we got from your site, Brad, and she's managing it and making sure that we're heading in the right direction. So we're super excited about that. And that's obviously another topic we talk about every month during our budget parties.
That's awesome. So travel rewards in some way has bridged the gap between the spender and the military frugalist.
Absolutely. You got it. No, exactly. You're exactly right. Because for me, I see the financial benefit of it. And for her, it's like, finally, we can go on a freaking vacation.
I love it.
And it's funny. You mentioned the Financial Peace University, the Dave Ramsey crowd on the credit cards. You'd be surprised about how many Financial Peace University coordinators still have credit cards, even though they've gone through it, because they probably spend a lot more time learning about these topics like you all have as well.
Yeah, that's a fascinating perspective, Andy. And as I'm thinking about this, I know people that are in a similar position, people that are coordinating Financial Peace University classes that are probably battling with that same dilemma that I imagine you feel when you go in and you're teaching people these amazing steps, baby steps 1 through 3, how to basically go from no financial knowledge to debt-free in a relatively short period of time. But on the backside of that, you're identifying with things you either disagree with or think are suboptimal, and you're kind of teasing that line on how rigidly do I need to adhere to this template. I'd love to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's funny that you mentioned that too, Jonathan, because even just recently, as this semester where I'm teaching the course, I said to myself, should I be doing this? Am I being disingenuous because I don't believe in every single thing that he's saying? And then I have to, share all these steps with people. But then I thought, you know what, man, there's a lot of people out there that just need help with the simple elementary things that Dave Ramsey's teaching in those baby steps 1 through 3, being able to save up an emergency fund, getting rid of your consumer debt, and then, realizing that debt freedom can help you reach a lot of different levels of life. And I decided, you know what, I'd rather give back and be in part of my community and help the people who really need it. But then for those folks who are looking for baby steps 4 through 7, and for everybody, we don't need to go through all the details right now, but that's essentially the, investing strategies, which a lot of people don't agree with. I don't agree with, based on how he lays it out. I think there's lots of people that can really find a lot of benefit through 1 through 3. So for those people out there who are kind of struggling with that, I still feel like there's a lot of benefit to give back in your community through this program.
And I love that. I am not a Dave Ramsey guy. I mean, frankly, I didn't know anything about baby steps 1 through 7 before meeting Jonathan and before recording this podcast. But it seems that he does a great service to many millions of people. So I wholeheartedly agree with you. You can teach that and help people and genuinely help people. And you don't have to feel that you are being disingenuous in any way, shape, or form just because, all right, you've reached the end of what Dave Ramsey has to teach. You're obviously debt-free. You have a $400,000 equity in your home and you're well on the path to financial independence. Okay, it's time to move on. But there are so many people that you can help and that you are helping. So really, well done, obviously. And I think you should feel very secure in teaching that.
Thank you very much. And it doesn't mean that I can't sneak any ChooseFI principles into my classes.
Just not travel rewards principles.
Exactly.
Don't do it.
There is a line.
There is a line, my friend. There is a line. All right. Well, normally that would be the end of the episode, but on this show, we would like to give you the chance to tackle the hot seat. Are you ready for this?
Absolutely.
In a world drowning in debt and rampant consumption, trapped by the chains of lifestyle inflation, these questions highlight the secrets of those who have broken free. Welcome to the ChooseFI Hot Seat.
All right. Question number 1, your favorite blog that's not your own.
This is a great one. Retire by 45. Dylan Redling is a guy that I actually had the opportunity to interview and chat with. And I got kind of hooked on his very inspiring series of articles about how he was able to retire at 43. And just the way he writes, it's very simple, straightforward, not theoretical. And it makes it seem very possible. So very inspired by what Dylan's doing.
Very cool. Love learning about new blogs. I've never heard of Dylan's site. So yeah, I'll check that out for sure. All right, Andy, question number 2, your favorite article of all time.
I would say lately, this is one that really got me last year and made me think about it a lot for the year following. It's an article written by Catherine Hanna from Making Your Money Matter, and it's called What Having It All Taught Me About Money. She had the chance to live in Shanghai after her husband got an international business assignment. And she had maids and drivers and gardeners and childcare. And she lived in this multi-million-dollar house. And she had some really great epiphanies about life and family and personal joy that were actually really inspiring. And, it's a good reminder for all of us that are trying to amass a certain amount of wealth and what you think that's going to give you when you get there. So I'd really recommend that article.
Oh, I can't wait to read it. That's awesome. Question number 3, your favorite life hack.
This was a fun one to think about. It's less of a gadget or a methodology. It's just something that I've been doing when I come home from work and then I transition into dad mode. So I actually had been doing this before I chatted with this gentleman, Kurt Steinhorst, but he called it minding the gap. So there's this point in time where, and for the people who out there who are working a 9 to 5 and then coming home and trying to, put on dad face or mom face, it's this point in time where you are trying to transition from business mode into family mode. And for me, how I do this, because I'm not really good when I walk in and my kids just grab onto me and I've got my phone in my hand and I'm having a phone conversation, it just turns me into, not the friendliest person. So what did I do to try to mind that gap is take a deep breath in my car in the garage before I enter the house. When I come in, I immediately go and change out of my work clothes and get into something comfortable. I completely shut off my phone and place it upstairs away from my family. So I'm concentrating on them, splash some cold water on my face, smile, and then I'm in family mode. And that way I can turn off my business day and then turn on Family Guy. And I feel a lot happier and my stress level works well with that as well.
Andy, that's really cool. So when you walk in the house, bear with me here with the actual granular details. So do you say hello to your wife and kids, and then you walk upstairs and take these 5 minutes or so?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's not, hey, bye, see you later. I'm saying hello, but my wife and I understand that I need that time in between when I'm transitioning from work to family, that it allows me to decompress. So I'll say hello, give my kids a hug, and then I'll head up, change, and then bring myself down to be in complete family mode. Because if I walk in and I'm still on a work phone call or I'm texting or writing a work email, I'm not being the best dad that I can be. So I want to make sure that I'm putting my full focus on my family when I get home at that point.
I'm leaning into this because this work-life balance, this minding the gap that you just mentioned, is something that I'm struggling with and against. And I love that. I'm very curious because you're in a very similar situation to me where you have this project that you've been working on, marriage, kids, and money. At some point in time, do you check back into that? Or once you get home, you are just done?
So the time that I've found to work on my side hustle or my excitement that I'm working on with my blog and podcast is in the morning. So my kids, luckily, I know a lot of people can't take advantage of this. They sleep in and I'm up at 5:30 and I'm getting my stuff done in the morning before they wake up. And when they do wake up, I'm in dad mode at that point. I'm making them breakfast. I'm getting them ready for school. And then we're starting our day. I do find time in the mornings and on the weekends to do what I need to do in order to produce the shows and do the writing. But outside of that, I'm trying to do my best to separate it so that I can keep a great family life.
So all of Marriage, Kids, Money is produced between 5:30 and 9 a.m. in the morning?
You got it, man. A little bit on the weekends too. I won't lie. There is some opportunity for me to work, in the evenings sometimes in order to get some of the things done. But yeah, a majority of it, the bulk of it's done in the morning.
I can't let my wife hear this now.
Yeah, I think you need to take some notes here, Jonathan.
Some people are night people. Some people are morning people. I'm a morning person. My wife likes to sleep in. She likes to stay up late. So it works for us.
That's really, really cool. I think Jonathan is a 24 hours a day person. Right?
Hey, man, that's a testament to your success. That's awesome.
Well, thank you. All right, Brad, you want to go with question number 4?
Sure. The question number 4, your biggest financial mistake.
I would say it is when I bought my first home when I was 22 years old and I did not know anything about the responsibility of owning a home. The mortgage was about 60% of my income. So I felt completely like I was drowning with this mortgage. And maybe that's a little bit of preview on why I wanted to get rid of my mortgage that I had. But I was enough money for me to eat ramen and drink my beer on the weekends. But I guess it forced me to be a little bit inventive. I learned the power of selling all my worldly possessions on eBay and Craigslist in order to live. I got roommates for the next 6 years, and progressively, as I add more and more of them, they were able to help me cover the cost of my mortgage and a little bit more. So I know that's called house hacking now. It wasn't called that back then. It was finding random people on Craigslist and roommates.com and having them live with you.
It was just called a crowded house.
Exactly. So yeah, I would say that's my biggest financial mistake is going into a large purchase with not understanding the ramifications and the costs associated with it. It kind of held me back for quite a while.
This is question number 5. What would be the advice you would give your younger self?
I would say avoiding the endorsed local provider that I was hooked up with. That's another Dave Ramsey term, everybody, just so you know. That person was a financial advisor that was more interested in selling me products that benefited him than actually helping me reach our retirement goals or helping us plan for our daughter's college. So I would give myself the advice, avoid that person and find a fiduciary or read any book at all on index fund investing and do it yourself. It's not as hard as it seems. We ended up losing some money when we shouldn't have based on some of that poor advice. So
I can certainly empathize. When I was at a place in my life where I was all in on trying to find an endorsed local provider because I thought that was the next step. Fortunately, I had 0 assets. I had one of these undiscovered negative net worths. So I was not in a place where I could make that mistake, but I certainly appreciate it. And I think that it's really valuable and awesome to have someone essentially still on the inside, someone that is both teaching people baby steps 1 through 3 and has actually made that choice. I mean, I think you saying this carries more weight for somebody that's maybe in a similar place than it would coming from Brad.
Yeah, no, there's definitely some benefits being in the program, and that was not one of them.
I would even go so far as to say that as a result of you making this confession, quote unquote, you will save probably thousands of people over the next 5 years, upwards of millions of dollars in assets under management fees. Can you imagine that? I mean, really, your biggest financial mistake is going to save a cumulative millions of dollars for other people.
No, that would make me feel better. Absolutely. I mean, honestly, it is something that people unfortunately should avoid because it doesn't have the best interest for the person who is being the investor. It's sad, honestly. It makes me sad.
All right, Andy, we have one little bonus question here. And it's basically, we talk a lot in the financial independence community about cutting expenses, and it's certainly not all deprivation by any means. And that's the farthest thing from it. And I'm curious, what was the best purchase that you've made in the last year? It could be, we used to ask on Amazon.com, but just in general, what's the purchase you've made in the last year that's most positively impacted your life?
One thing that's actually helped us, I guess, you mentioned saving money and being frugal. This is kind of both. This helps the marriage and it helps frugality. So it could maybe fit all of the buckets here. Last year we got a Nest, which is the home thermostat, And for the marriage, how this has helped the marriage, we used to have lots of thermostat fights in our house. I don't know if you guys ever have that, where you want it to be a little colder, she wants it to be a little hotter. This has actually helped reduce our thermostat fights immensely because it's got a great feature where you can calculate where you want the temperature to be at certain parts of the day. When she's home, she wants it to be at this level. When I'm home, I want it to be at this level. And it's sort of helped reduce some of those fights. And I really like it has a eco feature. So once both of us are out of the house or your cell phones are out of the house, it automatically goes into eco mode and you can save on heating or cooling your house when you're not there. So it's both frugal and it helps our marriage and super convenient. So,
Brad he knows what I'm Googling right now. Looking this thing up.
It's probably already in your house.
Evidently, it pays for itself in 2 years. So hopefully that's frugal enough.
Yes. Frugal win of the week. I'm getting my Nest. Awesome, man. Well, hey, I was really curious. I would like to maybe ask this additional question. If someone is finding your content for the first time, how would you like for them to discover it? If they're listening to a podcast episode or they're listening or reading one of your articles, is there any specific content that you'd like for us to link to or point people towards as a way to really get a good sense of what your podcast or articles are about?
Yeah, we had mentioned one of them during the show. I think the article where I wrote about our mortgage $400,000 home paid off in less than 4 years. This kind of gives an understanding, a full overview of how we did it, because I know a lot of people are probably listening to the show right now saying, well, how the heck did that happen? Or why did he do that? I put a lot of that methodology in there. I put a lot of the steps as well as my reasoning for wanting to do this for my family. And that would be a good one to let people understand a little bit more about how we did it and why we did it.
Absolutely. And your podcast as well. You have 66 episodes. You've actually featured both of us on there, as well as other people bringing their own tips and tricks into how to combine this concept of family and money. And I think it's very valuable information. I love that you've taken the time to put it together. What's the best way for people to connect with you?
Yeah, I think if people just can go to marriagekidsandmoney.com, that's both where I have the articles that I've written, as well as a weekly podcast where I get to interview incredibly smart individuals like yourselves that are bringing great messages for folks who are married with kids that want to give their families the best life possible.
All right, Andy, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show today.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
As I stated earlier, when we were setting up this episode, I talked a little bit about Andy really kind of straddling the line between these two respective communities. And I think that this episode shows you why the conversation is so valuable. Thank you so much for listening and for being a part of our community. If you want to support us, here are 4 easy ways. 1, leave us an iTunes review. If you want to do that, just go to ChooseFI.com/iTunes. 2, use our page to sign up for travel credit cards. If you want to travel the world with miles and points instead of your hard-earned dollars, then just go to ChooseFI.com/cards and get started today. 3, if you're working on the milestones of FI, set up a personal capital account to track your progress and use our affiliate link. It's completely free, and just go to ChooseFI.com/PC. P as in Paul, C as in cat. And 4, and most importantly, find your friends, coworkers, and family members who might be open to this message and tell them about the podcast. Have them start with episode 38, The Why of FI, and right behind that, have them go listen to episode 21, The Pillars of FI. It is a fantastic starting place. All right, my friends, the fire is spreading. We'll see you next time as we continue to go down the road less traveled.
You've been listening to ChooseFI Radio Podcast, where we help middle-class America build wealth, one life hack at a time.